We must try and guard against this quick fix coaches. Every other person calls themselves a coach. Do they really have the certification? Have they gone through the courses, which themselves are quite rigorous? It is also a self-propelled activity, because when you're coming for a coaching session, you want to make a change, you want to better yourself, you want to achieve. So what goes on inside a coaching space remains between the coach and the coachee. There is no judgment, there is no evaluation. I am encouraging my coachee to go forward in her life, and because she's the one to setting certain goals, and I am helping her to reach those goals. I'm helping her to go over the roadblocks which may be keeping her from the goals.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Statesman Talk with me, Deepti J. Verma. Today we are being joined by Moana Bhagabati, who is a certified life coach and a previous academic. Thank you for joining us, Moana ji.
Thank you so much, Deepti. Such a pleasure.
You know, everybody today talks about, it's almost like people have a physical trainer and they also have a life coach. And so please tell us viewers first, what is a life coach and what is life coaching?
So life coach and life coaching, it's a unique process whereby the coach enables a coachee, and here I will be using coachee and client interchangeably. So enables this coachee to discover potential in their own selves, empower them and help them to reach goals which they themselves set.
Okay.
And so it is in that sense a support service. And of course, it's different from other support services. And why did I use the word unique? It's because it's a very special partnership, which is an eye level to eye level partnership. The coach enables a coachee and sets herself onto a path of self-discovery. And the self-discovery is not just for its own sake, but this is towards reaching certain goals and taking action on the way.
So is it spiritual in that way?
One can.
Scientific?
It is scientific. It is evidence-based. The spiritual component may be added on by different coaches, but it is not primarily spiritual.
Okay, and the kind that you do, is it what kind? Is it purely scientific?
Yes.
Or is there's some personal touch to it, or this?
Interesting, Deepti, because I think every life coach brings onto the table something personal. But having said that, I have certified under the International Coaching Federation, which sets a gold standard for coaching. And they are very clearly outlined coaching competencies and ethical guidelines which we must follow. So if we are sticking to these guidelines and core competencies within that rubric, we can bring in our own personal touches.
So every life coach out there goes through this training? Or there are some who are informal life coaches as well?
It's ideal to go through training to call oneself a certified life coach.
So
and
this is the only body that does this?
No. So there's a difference between certification and accreditation. So certification is given by different organizations which have been enabled by the gold standard setting institutes which are global. So I follow the International Coaching Federation. Then there is a European EMCC, European Mentoring and Coaching Council, and there is also another council which is based in the Americas, but I have not followed that closely because I am quite content with the ICF mandate, and this is what I follow. But essentially, I think there are 3 or 4 global organizations which set the standards.
Do they bring in the cultural component of where you're going to be life coaching, or is it just a human based practice? Like it's like globally valid in that sense.
It is globally valid because a human being, wherever they may be situated, whether in India or anywhere else in the world, is, I think, essentially the same. The human component is the same. Yes, race and culture and backgrounds and upbringing do add different dimensions and elements. So as a life coach, and especially if you have traversed borders, one has to be extremely attuned to these aspects and aware of them and respect them.
Okay, and now going back to when you started, how did you get into this field? You know, you were a professor before, if I'm not mistaken. Please tell us that, like, you know, what were you doing before and how did you get into this line?
Right. So Deepti, yes, I have been in academics. I have trained as a researcher and a teacher, and my basic specialization has been in economics and international relations and international trade. So I did that for many years, starting from the end of the 90s when I completed my PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi, and going forward in different institutes, in universities, in research institutes, and subsequently also I have done projects and consultancies for international organizations. However, a little late in my life, and this I'm talking about the time of maybe 2013 or 14, there were certain events which happened in my life, in particular to do with my child. We have an only child, a daughter, who was going through tremendous struggles in her own life.
How old was she then?
She was 13.
Okay.
Yeah, in 2013 she was 13. Initially it was very hard for us as parents, and me in particular as a mother, because we didn't know what all this was coming from, where was this coming from. And I did not find myself equipped enough
Like
to
what, psychological
deal with the
issues?
situation. Yes, they were mental health related. However, Deepti, it was not easy to understand because it is not black and white. It is not in your face.
And do you think that it's like a teenager throwing
exactly
the usual tantrums?
Yes, initial months and perhaps even years, it seemed like that. It seemed like that, and I did falter many a times. I did go seeking out support myself, thinking that I needed help in order to be able to help to cope, number one, and also to help her, because at a certain point in time she was rejecting my help, perhaps because I'm the person closest to her. And this is the time I took a conscious decision to go a little easy initially on my professional career. And I wouldn't say to go easy, maybe hold back, because I had to invest a lot of time and effort in my child. I had to take her to different platforms in order to help her. And then I realized that I wouldn't be doing justice to my profession as an academic.
Especially if your mind is
absolutely, and also I wouldn't be doing justice to my child. I'm sure I could have done both, but I decided to
are those like really important years when you have to? Are they even more important than when baby is young?
Absolutely, I would think that, because when a baby is young, of course, that also needs a lot of inputs and a lot of being with the child, the baby and the child in different phases. So I'm not saying that it is either easier or more difficult, but Deepti, yes, certainly when a child who is growing is struggling and is rejecting parental help because she herself did not know that the parental help was for her own benefit.
Do most children go through that phase between 13 and 16 when they, completely reject parental help?
When I was a teenager, decades ago.
When you think your friends know better, or
Yes.
or you seek a mentor outside.
Yes, I think I went through this period of rebelliousness too, right? And I'm sure many people do. Most people probably go through a period of rebelliousness, which is
So
why
how do
they're
you know
called
when
the
that
teenage.
rebelliousness is problematic and it has to be addressed?
Exactly. So that is what took me a little bit of time. That was it just the usual quote unquote teenage rebellion, or was it something deeper? And we figured out that it was something deeper because we invested the time and effort and certainly the desire to open our minds to whatever would have been the outcome.
Or the diagnosis.
Yes, of the diagnosis. And yes, a certain diagnosis came, and it's not sort of an open and shut case of diagnosis, because when someone is dealing with mental health, there's a huge spectrum out there, right? So it's not just one clear diagnosis. It's not that.
And
so
it
the
spills
long
over.
Absolutely, it spills over. It spills over not only, it spills over into every arena of one's life, and it spills over into the family as well. So Deepti, to go back to the question of what made me go into this transition into life coach from academics, and in particular from this whole arena of international trade. And I worked at the level of multilateral trade at the World Trade Organization and regional trade agreements, is when I did take this break, and I did not know how long the break was going to be. I just took it. So one day went on to the next, and a month happened and went on to a year, and so on. And then I found myself quite drawn away from this world of international trade. And subsequently, and I would say that with tremendous efforts on our daughter's part to bounce back, which she has today, and of course,
do you think it was because of timely intervention?
Yes, absolutely. With timely intervention, and with correct diagnosis. But here again, Deepti, the diagnosis just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't also happen, at least in our case, with one particular medical professional, because this is again such a complex arena that opinions may diverge. Yeah. And so
is it a gut thing? Like, who do you go with?
For me, I sought support. I asked who would be the person to go with, and I myself went through several sessions with several professionals because I knew her the closest, me and her father, of course. But because I invested more time, my husband had been away, necessarily has to be away at work for extended periods of time. I think I started engaging with my child at different levels. Not to say that I was always empathetic.
And I think there comes the time when you see them as individuals, right?
Correct.
And it's a completely different way of interacting with.
It's a different way. And yes, I went through my periods of heartburn when your only child kind of tends to reject you and doesn't want to understand that I was coming from a space of helping and love and support. So having gone to different, in fact, agencies to understand the human mind better, and this, I think, the motivator was my child, because I was desperate to understand what was going on in her mind, because what was going on in her mind wasn't coming out directly in a linear form. It was coming out in very different ways, and it impacted us for periods of time in very, very different ways. So again, to go back,
there were new discoveries every few months?
Yeah, there were new discoveries, and not not always nice
Pleasant,
discoveries,
not always
not
pleasant,
always
yeah.
pleasant discoveries. The deeply disturbing discoveries as well. But this whole process was a journey of discovery for myself. You know, when you are in your 40s and you think your life is on an even track,
Yeah, everything is
everything
working,
is kind of
yeah.
you have a fine job, you really enjoy what you are doing, you have a loving partner, very supportive family otherwise, and suddenly things sort of go into a spin. And so this process had been going on for almost 10 years. I would say
With her?
seven to eight very intense years. And thereafter, the last 2 years have been the mending years. And I would even say the last few months.
Can you ever be sure that it's fully okay, or is it like work in progress always? Or the
Isn't that
person
true?
themselves develop like, a kind of manual to cope with it?
Yes, so there are mechanisms there, of course, and there are professionals out there who help. And it's always work in progress. It's work in progress, like any other condition. However, it's not having gone through all of this, I think I and my husband, we've developed a lot of understanding of the human mind.
Because you did it firsthand.
Absolutely. And acceptance. I was told by certain well-wishers that you have to accept, but I knew how difficult it was to just accept. But having gone through it, Deepti slowly put me into this trajectory of
Wanting to help others?
I didn't know exactly. Wanting to help others because I understood the challenges they may have themselves been facing, and also sometimes deep suffering. Perhaps people who would know me socially wouldn't really understand what I was going through. Right?
Yeah.
If you just meet me for an hour or so, you don't know what I'm going through. But having myself gone through this, and having been open to talking about it. Now, having been open to talking about it has also been
Taken
with my
time?
child's permission.
Yeah,
Today,
obviously.
for instance, when I was coming here, I did ask her.
You should ask. Yeah.
Yes, I did ask her. She's 24 now. And I said, do I have your permission to talk about certain life situations that we went through? She said, yeah. To the extent that she would like to talk about it, that's her call.
I think it's also a generational thing, you think? This generation is more open to talking about mental health and seeking the help that they need rather than, 20 years ago.
Oh, certainly, yes. They are more open, and here social media plays a great role. Because
there's no stigma attached
there
to it
is
anymore.
No stigma anymore. However, each person, I think, takes their own time
to I think admit it to themselves mostly.
Absolutely. And this is something I saw through with my daughter as well. So there was a period of intense denial. To me, it was all coming together because I was doing a lot of reading and understanding and talking with professionals. But that wasn't her outlook, right? So I had to learn to respect her outlook. And only when I decided to respect her and slowly change my own outlook or my own perceptions about her, I think we started building bridges.
So there was correctional work at your level as well?
Oh yes, a lot of it.
Because I think we're so quick to decide that it's not our fault with the way people around us are behaving.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when I took steps back, and I've done that very often, I still do that, and I went into a reflective mode that, were there instances where I could have done things differently. Of course, at some point there were certain questions that I had for myself. But that also
was there any guilt attached to being a working mother? That was another reason why you took a break?
No, there never was any guilt attached. I took a break because honestly, I
Because
didn't have the time.
Yeah, to cope.
I
just
didn't
for
have
that.
the time. I had to cope. I had to take her to different, in agencies where we were taking help. I would sit for hours together,
Yeah, so there was
either with
obviously
her
no
or
time.
outside. So for me, I thought if I wanted to do justice to this particular aspect of my life, which was a priority for me at that time, and I also am, someone who likes to do justice to whatever I am doing. So I said, this is priority for me now, which is why I think an unintended break actually became a break.
Okay, so you said that it was obviously a transition in your own personal life. That's when you got into this, and take us through after that. When you got into the field, how did you formalize it? How did you start learning, and then how did you get into the mainstream life coaching?
Right. So Deepti, there's a little element here which I'd like to add. So alongside what I had been, dealing with vis-a-vis my daughter, I'd also a little before this challenge actually, I started following a life philosophy, which is a Buddhist life philosophy, and I just took to it as fish to water because I found it extremely rational, and I am a rational person. I'm not really. I don't follow laid down
Which
paths.
one is this?
I follow Nichiren Buddhism, and
This
I
is the
practice.
Namyo Renge
Yes, that
Kyo
is
one,
right.
where you
yes.
chant and-
When I
yeah.
chant Namyo Renge
So it's cause and
Kyo.
effect. In the
Exactly.
universe.
Yeah, it's the law of cause and effect. And then I started reading and I started chanting, and it made a lot of sense to me. And it almost became my anchor because not only did it give me courage to deal with my situation, it also gave me understanding that's leading to compassion, and it gave me wisdom to deal with the situation. And also on extremely difficult days, it sort of helped me pick myself up back again. And in the process of this, following on this path of life philosophy, and another thing I loved about it is that I didn't have to discard any of my way of living or thinking. On the contrary, I found it an extremely liberating influence in my life. I started working.
Thinking as in what was your way of
like
thinking
I didn't
before?
have to
Abandon any of your beliefs?
either beliefs or a lifestyle or any
Yeah.
kind of lifestyle or any kind of habits. I didn't have to do that. On the
So
contrary,
it's not
I was-
prohibitory in any way?
there's no prohibition at all. In fact, it just enables you to discover your latent potential. It tells you how you can really better yourself as a human being. And so, as a very active member and working on this philosophy
And this
for
is
myself,
where did you join this?
I joined it actually when I was working in Missouri. So there was a phase in my life, 5 years. We as a family, myself, my husband, and my daughter, we spent 5 years in Missouri. We were teaching at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, which is the civil services.
It's the training center for IS and IFS
organization
officers.
For the higher civil services. So we've spent 5 lovely
So your
years.
husband also was working there?
Yes, he is a civil servant, so
Okay.
he was there, and I am an academic, so I was full-time into teaching. He was also into administration. And of course, our daughter had the loveliest growing up years there in this
Missouri.
very beautiful, most
The mountains
peaceful
have that
locale.
energy, the hills
they
have
have
that,
the
yeah.
lovely energy. So I started, I was introduced to this life philosophy when
In
I was
Missouri.
in Missouri. Initially, it was a little bit of a, the kind of interest you have in so many other things. I love reading.
Yeah, you just dabble.
Like
Yeah.
I was dabbling in it. I was reading up a little bit on it, and some things just seemed to strike ring a bell there. And that's how I continued until life circumstances go boom on your face. And that's when I really took to it as anchor. And as a part of this philosophy, what also I find extremely aligned with my thinking is that you're not only working for your own happiness.
Yeah, it's like a collective, right? You're meant to go there, share your experiences, and then everybody chants together for one person.
Absolutely. So you're also extending yourself for others to
and I
help
guess
others.
In a way, when you think about others' problems, you kind of forget your own. You learn to forget your own for a bit.
Your own diminishes,
Yeah.
right, in comparison. So then you start working alongside other members within this organization. And that's also was a huge learning experience for me, Deepti, because I started understanding that yes, whatever may be my challenges, they are probably minuscule compared to some of the challenges so many others are going through. So in a sense, I lent a lot of my time during the time when I was not in an active career.
And this was before you got into life coaching formally?
Yes,
Okay.
this was before. And I do think that
it gave you the platform.
10 years, I joined this practice in 2011. And so the 10 years plus that I was working very closely with others gave me such insights that when I came upon this whole sphere of life coaching, to me it seemed like, hey, haven't I been doing this as a vocation for so long? And it made
perfect sense.
It's a natural extension
of what you were practicing.
So in a sense, I decided to take the leap from a vocation to a profession. So that's how the academic in me decided that I didn't want to go back into research and academics, but this is something that I think when I enrolled for the course for certification, I really passionately fell in love with this whole sphere of life coaching.
And tell me, what does that entail when you do this course? What do they teach you?
Right. So they teach us all the tools and techniques. And they also teach us...
but you can't prescribe medication?
No.
No.
I'll come to that in just a bit. So, because it is about enabling a person to discover oneself, there are very many ways to do that. One is by, of course, a one-on-one session. And the sessions can be... a few sessions, bi-monthly sessions, can be for 3 months, can be 6 months, can be going up to whatever time. The process is always client-driven. So I am here, unlike as my professor avatar or my researcher avatar, I am not a domain expert, but I'm a process expert. The domain expert would be the client, would be the coachee.
What does that mean?
My role is to enable the coachee to bring out all the resources from within herself to arrive at the solutions that she desires. I'm not here to tell her...
And take the trajectory or the direction they want to take.
Yes. I'm a facilitator.
Okay.
And I'll tell you in a bit how that works. I'm not here to tell my coachee what they need to do. And here
so you don't provide solutions?
I don't provide solutions. I don't provide advice.
You provide tools?
I provide... the tools are for me. And maybe my coachee is not even aware of the tools that I'm employing. And maybe that my coachee doesn't care. As long as she gets her results, she doesn't care what tools I'm using.
It's almost like magic to them.
Not really.
They realize
it is not instantaneous, because it is a long drawn out process. And it is also a deeply reflective process.
Okay.
Yeah. And there can be sessions where as a coach, I enable my client to just be silent, to just
meditation, breathing
can be one. Yes, but not like, if we have, let's say, an hour session, it's not like we are engaging in meditation.
That would be conversation. Then.
That would be, it's a conversational process. And there are questions which we ask. One of the most important component in coaching is listening, active listening. So when I'm listening to my coachee, I am enabling her to reflect and speak. So sometimes the onus is on me to create an environment where I am probably not even visible, even if I'm sitting across her. And so this
it's like the old school, when they lie on the couch and they don't even see the therapist.
That.
It's like
But here it's what is called an eye level to eye level partnership. So we are sitting not ideally across each other. We can be just sitting on a couch, a little away from each other. And this active listening also enables me to hear. Maybe sometimes whatever my coachee may not even be speaking.
Do you think that's the problem with most of us, that we don't have anybody who wants to listen?
Correct.
That's the problem with most urban, especially urban people, or maybe even rural, I don't know.
Nowadays.
That they just need somebody to go, we don't talk to each other anymore at home.
Yes. However, Deepti, let me put in a clarification here that my role is not just to listen. But so coaching is a very forward-looking journey.
Okay.
Listening and reflection is just one part of the journey.
Yeah.
And it's a dynamic journey. So I am encouraging my coachee to go forward in her life, and because she's the one to setting certain goals, and I am helping her to reach those goals. I'm helping her to go over the roadblocks which may be keeping her from the goals. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So I've myself gone through, coaching when I was training to be a coach. So we have these interactive partnerships with fellow coaches. And it's such a deeply enlightening, if I may use this word, experience. So for instance, I have a deep desire to do something, and it's been in me, this little seed has been in me for many, many years, but I never seem to have made any progress. And any amount of rational thinking or sometimes even excuses didn't seem to help. So when I was asked that, what would you like to discuss? So I brought this issue on the table. And then through a series of very powerful questioning, I was made aware of what could be my roadblocks, which I actually was never aware otherwise, because the mind has a way of finding justification. And then subsequently, Deepti, the one very powerful question which came at the end is, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to do it now? It took me some time. I was a little thrown off by this question, and I thought about it, and I said, do I really want to do it? Or is it just a part of my belief that I have ingrained in myself? And then I said, well, I would like to do it, but maybe not now. Maybe I will do it at a time. Because I was kind of driven with some kind of guilt, saying, this is what I really want to do. This is a commitment I have made not only to myself, but to someone very dear to me. So am I failing that person if I'm not feeling? So all of this. So in that session, I was liberated. And I thought that, no, I will do it at some time, but why is it holding me back? And when I came upon this self-discovery or this realization, I said...
And you did this through
my coach.
Your coach.
My coach. Yeah. So coaching has tremendous potential. And so you were talking about, therapy, about,
how is it different than
it is different. So there are very many few support systems. One of this is psychotherapy. which is, one has to go
Which is
through
more specialized?
clinical psychologist, yeah. So one, of course, is the psychiatrist, who is the medical professional, who will prescribe medication. So a clinical psychologist also cannot prescribe medication. So the clinical psychologist, the therapy, the therapy itself is healing, right? So the therapist's role is to enable a person to heal. So if, and these are very clear and strong guidelines,
demarcations,
if I can sense that my coachee needs a mental health support, I cannot coach that person. I will have to direct them and suggest that they approach a therapist. However, alongside a therapist, I can work.
Yeah.
But I cannot just, so coaching is a life coaching, I would say, is a
Is that the first step, you think?
For a healthy
mind? For anybody?
Yes, sorry.
You would be the first step for anybody to come to.
Could be. Sometimes a person may not even know that they need professional medical help, right? They may just think
you will be able to recognize
I would be able to. We are trained
to do.
And we are also strictly, this is also the ethical guideline of the International Coaching Federation, that yes, you will have to refer. You can't keep saying to a person who says, I cannot do it, just by saying, yes, you can, doesn't make that person you can. So that's one. Another could be consulting, consultancies. We hear of the term consulting so often now. There's business consultancies and so on. There again, or you even you consult a doctor, or you consult a lawyer to diagnose. A doctor will diagnose your ailment and then prescribe medication. So here you asked a question about domain expert. The doctor is the domain expert. The lawyer is the domain expert. The coach is not, I don't have to know your specialization to enable you to find your calling or to find your solutions, right? It is different from consulting. It's different from mentorship. As a mentor can advise. A mentor can also offer counseling. A mentor can give some amount of training, and a mentor can also say, you know what, this is what worked for me, it can work for you as well. So that's a mentor. But if I am only working as a life coach, we are advised. Of course, many people may not follow this advice. The guidelines advise us not to confuse mentorship and life coaching and coaching. And then, of course, there is training and teaching and all of that. All of them are different. They, of course, all empower individuals, but each has its own space.
And what kind of clients seek life coaching? It could be anybody, any age group, any background?
Anybody. I think everybody can do with a life coach.
Do you think it's something that you can even do without actually having any problem, so to speak? Like sometimes you might not know that you have a problem. Like you might think your life is perfect, but do you think it's worth going for a session to at least understand that how you can maybe better it?
Yes, absolutely. Because we all have scope to better our lives. We all have scope to discover new areas or avenues that we haven't yet discovered.
And we are very limited in obviously understanding our own potential sometimes.
Absolutely. And sometimes we may be going round in circles in our lives, not really knowing what is the exit route. And that's where a life coach can really help us to find out more about ourselves. Sometimes, Deepti, we think, and this is from my own personal experience of taking life coaching from my mentor coach, I thought I knew everything about myself. But when I went through a coaching session, I said, wow, this is a new vista I did not even know.
Don't you think schools and colleges should make this almost like a compulsory session for, especially in the formative years? it's so important to be able to talk to somebody else if you're
Yes, absolutely. I think
I mean, they all have counselors.
More and more schools have counselors.
Yeah.
And here it's interesting. So I have a friend, a younger friend, who has a young son. And she feels he's an extremely active child. He's 8 years old, and he kind of pat comes his answer. Whatever she tells him, he has a strong mind of its own, extremely talented. And she told me that, she asked me that, can you coach my son? I wasn't really sure how much a 8-year-old would take to coaching. So I went back to my mentor coach, who's a very, very experienced life coach.
He's an Indian? It's an Indian?
He's in India.
Yeah.
And he told me that, yes, a 7 to 8-year-old who's articulate, who has a mind of his own,
communicating.
Is communicating. Is perfectly okay. You can coach, but does he want to be coached? Does he think his life needs anything? Isn't he absolutely happy with him? That is something you need to ask. And secondly,
but
or does
a child
he want to change?
Won't be able to answer that.
Does he want to change in any way? His mom may think he's a problem child. He doesn't think he's a problem child. He's a perfectly happy, assertive child. So my advice was, ask his mother. Would she benefit from life coaching as to how to handle her child, right?
Maybe that would be the right first step.
Absolutely. So that is where so many vistas open up. We always think it's perhaps, whether it's a child.
You think women are more receptive to? Do you have more women coming in?
Yes, but also I think young adults, men and women, both. Even men, you see, even men would appreciate a confidential, private, safe space.
Actually, men don't end up talking that. Women have girlfriends or sisters that they kind of confide in.
There's a sisterhood, there's a bonding. Men don't generally open up because they have a certain persona. They feel
that's why even in religious and spiritual groups, you see more women taking to it faster. Men tend to rationalize everything and kind of resist anything.
Absolutely. But yes, men also feel very appreciative when they are in a coaching session, because this is a very forward-looking and forward-moving, result-oriented strategy. And there is absolute confidence. So what goes on inside a coaching space remains between the coach and the coachee. There is no judgment. There is no evaluation. The coach helps the coachee to set their own targets with a little nudge here and little nudge. Timelines, a coach gives a little nudge if the timelines from the coachee tends to be slow movement, and you see it is also a self-propelled activity, because when you are coming for a coaching session,
that means you want to
make a change. You want to better yourself. You want to achieve. And also, Deepthi, what I've understood in this journey as a life coach is that you may begin with a certain goal, but along the way, there are a lot of other discoveries.
You might realize that your priorities are maybe a bit warped and you need a different goal. Sometimes they could be set by other people and it's not something you want personally.
It does happen. And I'll just give you a quick example. So, of someone who said that I have been asked in my office to better organize my life, and because my desk is such a clutter and so on and so on, so I need help in this field to kind of just organize. So, okay, so it's about organizing. Yes, it's organizing your life. Yes, but I need to start organizing my desk. And so on and so forth. But in the course of a conversation, several conversations which went deeper into life, can go back into the past and so on and so forth, it did come about. This person comes and says that, you know what?
I thrive in
chaos. Yeah. So I'm okay the way I am. So why did you come to our coach? Because I was asked to come to our coach.
Yeah. So it could be because sometimes other people tell you that there is a problem with you.
That's right. However, the whole coaching process was deeply appreciated by the same person because he said, well, it led me into other fields which I was not aware of.
Yeah.
So his goal shifted.
Goal shifted.
But then the journey itself was a learning journey for him.
Amazing. Okay, my last question to you is, there's obviously social media and there are so many therapists online or, people from all variously talking every day. We see reels, we see short videos on people giving life advice. And so how does a person who wants to go to a life coach recognize who is good for them and, how to recognize that what claims are being made are not okay? How do you make that choice?
Right. So Deepthi, of course, we all understand in this day and age of social media, and which is a lot of maybe, Insta results and Insta gratification has a huge amount of positives and pluses. However, and here is where the standard setting institutes like the International Coaching Federation lay down very clear guidelines that we cannot get away with instantaneous answers and we cannot play around with coaches' lives. And any shift which has to happen at a deeper level. It just doesn't happen if you see a reel. And in fact, sometimes the reel may even have contrary results because you may just feel that, oh, somebody's achieved that in such a short time. How am I not able to achieve it? And hence, life coaching is a system whereby you invest a lot of time and you invest a lot of effort. It is a slow process. It is a painstaking process, involves patience, involves perseverance. And also I think one keeps one's own ego as a coach aside, because it's also a great learning process for the coach as you are undertaking the journey with your coachee. Having said that, there are a lot of positives from the social media. We must try and guard against this quick fix coaches. Every other person called themselves a coach. Do they really have the certification? Have they gone through the courses, which themselves are quite rigorous? Because we are also put through, once we do this certification course, we also put through several rounds of mentoring, several rounds of assessments, which we have to submit to our training institutes. And I think all of this is done for the benefit of the client and the coachee. So I do not think there are instant answers. And
anybody who's claiming to give them should be...
Well, yes. I mean, one should know what the claim is. But in today's world, which is so crowded, there is also so much of clutter and noise. And I think people come for life coaching because they want to get away from the clutter, because they want to touch base with themselves and move forward in their lives and achieve, I think, exceptional results in their own lives. And they're completely capable of doing this. This is the belief the coaches instill in the coachees.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful talking to you. I guess we'll have more sessions with you going forward. And it was lovely talking to you today. At least we got to have the first start of knowing what life coaching is. And amazing. It was amazing getting to know you.
Thank you so much, Deepthi. It was so wonderful. In fact, while talking to you, so many thoughts came to my mind and so many clarifications in my own mind and discoveries too. Yes, and discoveries too. And it's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
If you like this episode, don't forget to share it, and also like, share and subscribe. All our social media handles are listed below. Thank you.